Call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with that, we are next item of business is the approval of the agenda. Any changes, any errors, any additions, reductions? I guess we can't do any additions, but any changes?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. I read it all before I had surgery.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we will vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5. Greg, I think you're muted, but
Yes. There you go. Next item is the approval of the previous minutes. First one being the board meeting from March 9th.
I move we approve the minutes for March 9th.
Short and sweet, second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes. Next is the previous minutes from the work group session on March 16th.
Move to accept.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the work group session minutes for March 16th. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes. Motion carries. Next item is public comment. I know we have some public on. Anybody want to make a public comment? I don't hear anybody jumping in. Some people are on mute.
Hey, Bob, this is Dave from the Root River. I just wanted to voice my congratulations to the health department there. I got my first shot of vaccine there last week, and boy, those folks do an excellent job over there. It's really smooth and informal and informational, and it was just a great experience. I really appreciate that from you guys.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got your email too, Dave, so
Wonderful.
yep.
Thank you,
Anybody
Dave.
else- Anybody else with a public comment? Otherwise, there will be an opportunity at the end of the meeting for public comment as well. We will move. I heard a ding. Somebody coming in? All right, we'll move on then to the COVID-19 update from Public Health.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
John.
So not a lot to report this week. We will be having another 300-dose clinic at the Four Seasons on Thursday, the 25th. Encouraged to continue getting doses on, the last several weeks. One interesting thing this week is that we won't be doing any second doses because we're kind of about a month out from when we had about a 2 or 3 week period where we didn't receive any new doses. So this week it's just first doses, and that'll be this Thursday at the Four Seasons. One other thing I'd note is that as we have moved into the 1B priority group, we get a lot of questions as to eligibility, and those eligibility questions are getting a lot more difficult and complex to respond to. In 1A, it was fairly straightforward. You know, are you an EMS provider? Are you a healthcare professional? Are you 65 and older? Do you work in a public school or in a school setting? Those were fairly straightforward. As we're moving to more of the population with certain underlying conditions, we still are hopeful that primary caregivers, that they're going to be reaching out to those folks because they have their chart and know their health history where we don't. But just as an aside here, it's a lot more complex to kind of determine eligibility as we get deeper into this. And you know, the state of Minnesota is wrestling with making sure that doses are moving out equitably. And so I think a lot of counties are kind of experiencing some of the same type of thing. That said, we still are in the top 10 counties in the state as far as percentage of people who have been vaccinated. I appreciate the comments that we get from folks who are appreciative of the work we're doing. It truly has been a county-wide and community effort. We have a lot of community volunteers who are helping us with our vaccine clinics. We've got people from different departments within county government, and it also has been, in my estimation, a real example of the I don't know, a cohesiveness of public health and human services, as we've had people from across our agency who have helped to carry the burden of clinics. You know, as we've mentioned many times, everybody had a full-time job before COVID. And so having the responsibilities of clinics fall on just a few would be really, really hard on them. And we definitely would not be where we are in percentage of our population vaccinated. So I'm grateful to our staff in public health and human services. I'm also grateful to the people across the county system who have assisted, and certainly our community and Four Seasons Community Center. It's really been encouraging experience. So Heather, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so, unless there are questions. I think you summed it up.
Are we seeing any of the variants in our county?
To my knowledge, we have not seen a variant in our county. There was a variant identified in La Crosse County last week. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think one thing, while we can celebrate success right now with vaccination clinics, our effort isn't over, and it's really not even close to over. We're going to be doing vaccination for quite some time. And you know, what we keep hearing consistently from Minnesota Department of Health is that it's a race against variants. And it's not uncommon for viruses to mutate and come up with variant versions. The degree to which we have a higher percentage of our population that's vaccinated is really the first line of defense against those variants. And that's really the deal right now is, can we get enough people vaccinated before we see more prevalence of different mutations? So the other thing I'd note is we hear a lot about people saying, you know, if you get vaccinated, then you don't need to follow any of the different guidance as far as restrictions, distancing, mask wearing, things like that. Really, until we get to the point where we have herd immunity established, it's really important that you still do that. So that's been our message as we've been visiting with people as they leave the clinics and as we get asked. But so long answer to your question, Commissioner, but fortunately we have not seen a reported case of a variant in Houston County, but pretty close.
we still don't know if the vaccine has protection against the variant.
I think the challenge with that is, like almost everything with COVID, is it's so new, and there's not enough experience with different variants to know exactly how the vaccines, and whether Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, which ones are effective against variants that maybe we haven't even seen yet. The indication is that they're effective against variants, but I don't know. I think, as so many things, the story of this is still being written. Heather, have you heard anything more about that?
No, I have not. I mean, just anecdotally, it looks like it is. But just to go back to your original question, Teresa, we will get notified from MDH if there is a variant that is located or, that surfaces in Houston County within a case. So it does take some time. Typically, more than likely that case will have been recovered by the time we will know that it was a variant case because of the typing and sequencing that goes into that.
So we're getting a regular supply of doses now every week, or how does that working?
I think I'm hopeful that it's starting to look more regular. Yes.
Okay.
I think at this point we anticipated at least some J&J into Houston County. That's still not the case. Pretty limited doses coming into the state, but we have indicated our willingness to accept that vaccine. So we will take that when they have that supply. But yes, I think the continuity will hopefully be more consistent of getting that. The number of doses, I think, could fluctuate depending on the tier that we're in and how far along we are in that percentage of the population as they look to distribute it equitably. So.
Good.
Okay.
Other questions?
Keep up the good work.
Very much.
Thank you.
Well, then we'll move on, but we've got a 9:30 appointment and a 9:50, so we'll slide forward to the consent agenda, which there are 3 items. Accepting the resignation of James Gardner, approving the initial competitive search for a probationary environmental services specialist, extending the paid leave for coronavirus, granting employees up to 80 hours of sick leave through May 31st. Any comments, any discussion on the consent?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda and thank Jim for his service.
Okay. Motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we will vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes. So with that, let's move to the first action item.
Bob, may I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I think Kimberly was ready to roll there. If she wanted to start, could we go with her? Or?
I just was looking at it. It's advertised at 9:30, and if we move ahead, I guess we can.
Sure.
Kimberly.
We do have a visitor for action item number 1 too, just so you know, but
For that. But no, we can go to let's go to the 9:30 MDA information on the upcoming gypsy moth treatments in Houston County.
Well, good morning, everybody. I hope I've got this screen shared correctly.
Yeah.
Wonderful. we typically use Teams, so I'm not as familiar with Zoom as I probably could and should be. But I'm seeing individuals, but are you actually seeing my screen at this time?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And thanks both Amelia and Erin for inviting me today to come share our project with you. This isn't the first time MDA staff have been at the council or at the board meetings. You may have had one of my staff last year come and present. Are folks overall familiar with gypsy moth? Just so I can, as I began my presentation, I can jump over a few things, but familiarity?
Yes.
Yeah, you did something in Hoka last year, I believe.
Correct. Yep. Wonderful. Well, great. So then I will jump in and I'll share. I want to share quite a bit or leave quite a bit of time for questions and answers that people may have. So I'm going to go through some information fairly quickly. We have a presentation or a slideshow here. And then after that, I will open it up to lots of questions, things that you may have, concerns, anything that you want to address. Be happy to help answer those questions. So a little bit about, let me see, get my screen going here. I'm missing. We're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. I don't have my slides. It's not showing me everything on my screens. I have 3 screens here, so I'm trying to just make sure I have them correctly. There we go. Got it. Just need to move you guys a little bit to the side. Wonderful. So my goal today was just give you a little bit of background about the insect, because that's super important to understand why we manage for this pest in the state of Minnesota. Share with you a little bit of its distribution and its movement into the state of Minnesota, and then what management we do to kind of suppress and kind of slow that natural population spread into our state, and why that's so important as well. A little bit about gypsy moth. It is a European insect species. It was actually accidentally introduced into Medford, Massachusetts way back in the 1800s. It is a European insect. The reason it was brought in was they were trying to get a better silk industry. So they were trying to cross a very hardy gypsy moth with a silk moth. That particular experiment failed, and we now have an introduced invasive species into North America. And since that time, it's been moving westward ever since. Gypsy moth is a tree defoliator, and it will consume up to a 9 square area of foliage in its lifetime. So very large area, lots of leaf matter within that life period of the insect itself. It is probably one of the most destructive forest pest in the U.S. today, right behind emerald ash borer, which you may be familiar with as well. But it is right up there as one of our most important invasive insects in the state of in the U.S. today. It will feed on 300 species of trees and shrubs, so that's why it's so damaging. It will have a very wide host range. So there is a very large variety of trees. So it's not specific to 1 or 2 trees. It just has this very wide host range, and that's why it's so successful and it's spread across the U.S. This picture is actually taken in July. These are trees that were at one point fully foliated or had leaves, and now have been consumed by gypsy moth within the canopy. And you can see it almost looks like fall or early spring, when in fact this is a July picture that has been taken. Gypsy moth will they will defoliate trees, which will actually stress trees. So they don't actually kill the tree itself, but they cause widespread defoliation that stresses trees in both urban and forest environments. And that stress then leads to other insects and diseases to kind of come in and cause tree mortality. Nationally, we see widespread defoliation up to 850,000 acres kind of annually across the area in which gypsy moth is established. At high, it was over 12 million acres back in the early 80s, but we're seeing now it's kind of averaging out to about that 800,000 acres annually. The light gray areas are actually areas where there is defoliation. You can see it looks like almost dead trees. In fact, they're just, the leaves are all gone. Gypsy moth can become a human, has lots of human impacts. Both the hairs from and the shedded skins can provoke rashes, and people can have allergic reactions. So they have these long hairs that actually break off and kind of float into the air, and they can have respiratory issues and concerns when there's wide outbreaks. We can see property values decrease with tree mortality, thousands and thousands of caterpillars crawling all over. They're simply a nuisance. People don't really like to be camping and having caterpillars, falling all over them. And then as gypsy moth, because it is a federally regulated pest species, there are regulations that come into play once establishment happens in an area. So once gypsy moth becomes established, we implement quarantines to try to minimize the movement of this pest to new areas. And that can be costly for our local industry as well, with the added cost of inspections and things like that. Distribution, a little bit about its distribution. Nationally, gypsy moth is only established in 1/3 its geographical range. So we are protecting 2/3 of the US in which gypsy moth can and will eventually be established. But right now it's only in 1/3 of in its actual range that it's going to eventually take over. And you can see that by this map. It's pretty much eastern panhandle or the northeastern part of the US. Gypsy moth moves pretty slowly on its own. Natural disbursement of this insect, and as you can imagine, it's been introduced since the 1800s and it's still only in 1/3 its geographical range, has a lot to do with its natural dispersal. Gypsy moth will only naturally disperse through this phenomenon called larval ballooning at the very first hatch stage. So as soon as those tiny little caterpillars hatch, they put out these silken threads and they virtually balloon in the air until they get on a leaf mat or a food source in which they can start to feed. That natural dispersal is about 1 mile to 1.25 miles per year on average. So they don't really move very far. And this is really the only way they can move. The female moth does not have flight. So she literally can't, once they get into the moth form, they really are not very mobile. The males are the ones that can fly, but the females have these beautiful wings, but she's just not able to move. So the natural disbursement is really only through this first instar caterpillars. However, humans, we're really good at moving things. We can transport things from one part of our country to the other side with a matter of a couple of days. So they are great at hitchhiking. Gypsy moth loves to layer egg masses on pretty much any outdoor item, and then that can move long distances. You can get it from firewood, household moods, nursery stock, virtually any outdoor item that is in an area where there is outbreaks of gypsy moth and where they're actually, mating, laying eggs, can cause this human dispersal. We see it with tourism on campers and trailers, in the industry, outdoor equipment, and this expedites the movement. So we have that 1.25 miles per year. Human assisted movement now has accelerated this movement to about 15 miles per year on average. Holiday green and just a few other things, and visitors from quarantine areas. So that's how they get and move naturally and come artificially across the US. Minnesota, we do management. We've been managing for this insect since the early 70s. And how we do that, and it's a partnership for our federal agencies, both USDA and USDA Animal Plant Health Inspection Service and the USDA Forest Service. So there is a joint partnership with the state and the federal agencies to slow this population movement across the US and to eradicate it in areas where it's not infested. So from the 1970s, we've been surveying for this pest. You may have seen these little cardboard traps across Houston County. Annually, we'll set about 20,000 of these detection traps. And we use this for early population. It's not for, they don't trap out the insect. They simply detect if populations are present in an area and at what levels. They're very good. It's one of the most studied insect pests out there, and likely the most, the best survey technique that we can have for insect population dynamics with all insects. This is one of the best that we have. And you can say, we'll talk about infested zone, transition zone, and then uninfested. We kind of manage through these zones, and our survey program manages for these detections. Here's a map of 2020 survey results. Gypsy moth is moving into Minnesota, as you saw from that initial map across the US. we are starting to see natural population movement into Minnesota and the natural front coming into our state. We see, these male moth dispersal events. We see these isolated populations in advance of the advancing front. But every year we survey about 21,000 traps are placed across the eastern half of Minnesota. And we capture they pick up isolated populations. And you can see Houston County down in that, we pulled it out. The numbers are increasing to 245 miles across the entire state, and you can see some of the higher areas on that eastern half.
Is that from a natural progression of the front, or does the water have anything to do with it, like the river and lakes?
It has a combination. Gypsy moth are edge flyers. So obviously river corridors, they love flying along river corridors. And so that is a really great route for them, edges of forests. But it's not necessarily the water resource, it's the natural population pushing into the state from Wisconsin. And actually the next slide will show that. You can see this natural kind of, here's the US and the populations across the US and where we do our management. So what we manage in Minnesota, how we manage in Minnesota, we are a part of a national program called Slow the Spread through the US Forest Service. And every one of these states manages gypsy moth the same traps, same protocols in regards to how we survey and how we manage, using same products, same contracts, all that is very similar. And the goal is to slow gypsy moth advancing front. This program has been extremely successful. It's actually a model national program for pest management. We've been able to reduce spread by over 60%. So that, as I talked about, that kind of human assisted spread increased to about 15 miles per year. With this national program implemented in the early 2000s, we've been able to reduce spread by over 60%. And now we're seeing spread rates, population spreads only at about 5 to 6 miles per year. So it's been extremely successful. I wanted to show you how close the population is to Houston County. And that's why the map on the left. What I wanted to show is that the little red squares that you see in Wisconsin and down through Iowa is intensive management that happened in 2020 of blocks in advance of that front, where we go in and we try to suppress. I compare it to like a forest fire. You see these sparks way in advance of the front. We kind of suppress those sparks and those tiny little fires before they have an opportunity to grow and become this gigantic forest fire moving across the nation. So that's where we work. And there's that HOCA block from 2020 that was just last year. We have put together a really nice interactive map. There is on our website. You can go, anyone can access this website. You can go in, you can type in your address, and you can determine how close you are to our project proposed areas, or get information just across Minnesota on where we're doing applications and where we're doing our proposed projects. This year is a record year. Minnesota's got 140,000 acres of management, close to about 140,000. 15 blocks spread across all the way from 2 harbors all the way down to the Iowa border. So there are 6 counties that are being addressed this year with some type of management proposal. And then getting into a little more site specifics on this information that you received, we have 3 blocks within Houston County that we are doing proposed applications on. One is considered Brownsville, and we named it that it does encompass parts of the city of Brownsville, about half of it. It's 2,400 acres in size. The second block is Jefferson, and that is right next to the Iowa border, Wisconsin-Iowa border, kind of bordering down below, and it's 2,800 acres, just under 2,900 acres in size. The third block is called Mound Prairie, and that's about 12,000 acres in size, and received all these maps as well in your packets. But the proposed project in which we do the management is a little bit different than what we used last year in HOCA. This year, our management proposal is using mating disruption, which is actually the pheromone, the synthetic pheromone of the female, which we flood the area during the mating season when the male moths are out mating with females. We flood the area right before that with this pheromone, and the males literally cannot find females in which to mate. So they die before mating happens. So this has been extremely successful product that we've used in these very low level populations. So the key is you have to have very low level populations for this mating disruption to work. We do one aerial application, so it's a single application. And for Houston County, the total is about 17,000 acres. And the applications typically happen, during the day, all the way from 7 to 3 p.m. We can work all day long. There's limited environmental issues or concerns other than, heavy rains, very windy conditions, those things. And the project will take place about in late June and early July, when those males are starting to come out and emerge and looking for females in which to mate. The actual product is called Splat GMO, and the GMO is for a gypsy moth organic. It is an organic certified product. It is non-toxic and all biodegradable. So the carrier that distributes the pheromone is actually a food grade based product, similar to like wax and lipstick. It's all made of food grade materials, so it breaks down pretty readily. The other very significant positive with mating disruption is it's species specific. It is only specific to gypsy moth and gypsy moth alone. We do a lot of public notification prior to our applications, and this is pretty important and very key to us. We will send out, I think they're going to go out about next week, we're going to send informational postcards to each and every resident within those blocks. We work with the county folks to do community, county, and city meetings. To about approximately 2 weeks prior to application in that late June timeframe, so in mid-June, your residents will get a second postcard. They'll also remind them that projects are going to take place in the timeframe in which they'll take place. There'll be notices in papers, hospitals and local law enforcement are notified, and then we do press releases to local media. The one big thing that we found huge successes is this email text notification. If residents have the ability to go online and put in either their phone number or an email, and they will get automatic text emails and notifications when our project will begin. We'll tell them the day of application, we'll tell them when the airplane is in the air, we'll let them know when the airplane is out of the air, and that's through that text and email notification. We also have a toll-free number that folks can call at any time to get information at any time of the day, and that's updated regularly as we get closer to application. And new this year, I'm working with a project. It's called Driftwatch, which you may be familiar. Driftwatch is where folks that have organic gardens, pollinator beehives, etc., can put in their information. And this is a way that we or applicators can go in and see where these sensitive sites are, so that we can notify them directly as well. So that's another thing we're going to be implementing this year. As you may know, last year we did have some concerns of some beehives, and we worked with that directly with that individual. But this is hopefully we can get ahead of that early on and get that notification out very early to those individuals that have registered in that program.
Yeah, there's somebody in Mount Prairie that has a beehive,
Yeah.
and they'll be the first ones to call you. So
Yeah. Well, we're hopeful that this Driftwatch, I hope that they are registered with this program. We only know where they are, they're registered. And that would be important. But if they're in the block, they'll get those 2 notifications. So hopefully they can reach out to us and we can address any of their concerns at that time. But if they're outside the block, then it's, press release and through, local media is what we hope to get the message out. So I'm hopeful this will work. This will be a key thing for us this year. Even though this product is very specific to gypsy moth, there's always concerns. So we want to make sure we address those as well before we put those planes up in the air. We do a very intensive environmental review process. So each of those blocks are scoped from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Minnesota DNR historical sites for any impacts to these unique historical sites and or species of threatened and endangered species as well. So there's an intense environmental review process that does take place before any applications go forward. We also take comments and questions from the public, and if there's any concerns or anything that we have not addressed, we want to ensure we address those before we move forward with the project. One of the ways we do encourage public comment, to definitely put in comments to let us know if there are any concerns so that we can talk, address those concerns with them directly. And we encourage that, the comment period by April 18th, if we are able to get all those comments in. And then that'll conclude our environmental process. But with that, I kind of want to leave the time for some questions. Any questions from the group?
I have one, you hit it, I think, just to clarify, there's no side effects to human or livestock with this organic material.
Great question. Thank you, Commissioner Severson. You are correct. There is no impacts to human, animals with this particular product. That's one of the reasons why it's so used in these large projects, both in Minnesota and nationally, is because of the limited and impacts to non-targets.
I want to ask a quick question. We live in a kind of a woody area, and if we notice anything, is there individual treatments, or do we just contact you?
So we don't encourage any citizen treatments at all across the entire state of Minnesota.
Okay.
That's the benefit of our statewide program, is that we use products. First, we have those survey traps that are really good. They can pick up populations at an extremely low level that most residents, actually 99% of individuals, would not even know they have a population established in their backyards. So these traps are placed at about a mile. In reference, in Houston County, they're about a mile apart. So we will pick those populations up at a very low level. And then the other thing that we encourage is that residents don't use any pesticide chemicals because of the products that we use that I just mentioned. The pheromones are very specific. We also have BTK, which is specific to moth and butter. So we have this very narrow impact to other non-targets, where when residents they just want to kill it. So they're going to put, and so it reduces the pesticide loading in the environment as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What is the moth's life expectancy?
So the actual insect has one life cycle per year. The actual moth in the moth form, so they start out as little tiny caterpillars and they grow, like shedding their skins, and they grow to about my pinky in size. They're a pretty large caterpillar at their mature stage. Then they pupate and go into moth form. And the moth form is really only active for about 4 to 6 weeks. So it's a very small period of time. So that's why we do the pheromone. We put it out in advance of that kind of emergence of the males and females hatching, or coming out of pupation. And then they die shortly after. So it's about a 4 to 6 week time frame that the moths are actually active.
So like in those blocks, there's quite a bit of area of open area. Do you spray the whole block, or do you just concentrate on the forest areas?
It really depends on the block. We do avoid like open agricultural lands. So there's definitely open agricultural lands where there's not going to be any trees or shrubs. We will avoid some of those areas. What we find down in Houston County is you've got lots of ravines. You've got wood lots. You've got windrows of trees and shrubs. We want to be very cautious that we make sure those get applied to, because we've seen, like in Indiana example, they literally would skip an area, but they'd have one tree in the middle of their cornfields, and that tree would have a population, and it would grow and become large. So we do avoid some of those areas, but majority of the area will be treated.
Okay. Yeah, I can imagine that one tree's like a sanctuary for them. So.
Yeah. Indiana, they had a site. They kept going back multiple years. They couldn't figure out why it was still, the survey data was showing that it was still there, and it was because they didn't do the agricultural lands. They missed that tree. So we hope to avoid that.
Well, these yellow planes that you use for the spraying or the dusting, would they headquarter out of the Houston County Airport then? For this?
That That's a great question. I, at this point, do not know where our contractor will be working out of. It is a national contract and it's held by the U.S. Forest Service, and they literally start from Virginia and move their way all the way through Minnesota. I do know they work on very small, they work out of very small local airports across the country. I just don't know with where our blocks are situated, which one they'll choose this year for expedited and efficiencies.
Given the location, they're probably coming out of La Crosse.
Potentially that, like I said, I don't know that yet. We do have lots of acres in Winona. There are several, I think there's 7 large blocks in the Winona County area up into Wabasha. So I, at this point, won't know. But what I will do is definitely let you know once that information is known. Our aerial applicator is secured with U.S. Forest Service. It is a 5-year contract. It is Al's Aerial Spraying out of Ovid, Michigan. What I will tell you is they are the best in the nation. They are super impressive company. They've held this contract for 20 years, doing 400,000 acres annually. So they have a lot of experience with these projects and very top notch. And so once I know that information of where they'll be working out of, I will definitely let you know. I have each and every one of you in a listserv that's for local leaders only. So it would include county commissioners, your staff, city council members, so the city of Brownsville's council members as well. We want to include them. And it's for pre-notification. So before we send out any postcards to your residents, any press releases, we will let you know first and foremost that that's occurring. We'll also let you know about emergency management. So where we're going to be working out of for our projects, who's been notified. We include the 911 system and just every emergency management as well, just for precaution as well. And so we'll make sure those folks are updated as well as we proceed here.
Thank you.
I could see them coming out of there, the county airport for Jefferson. That would make sense.
Yeah.
All that spraying that we did last year on the ag land came out of there, the county airport. Doesn't matter. Any other questions for Kimberly? Otherwise, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting, very informative. A lot faster than reading everything that you sent us.
Very good.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You know,
Then we will move on, and it's close enough, I think, to 9:50 that we'll have Dave give us the update on River Soil and Water. If he's still with us. Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. There, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for having me. I plan on just kind of updating you folks on what we did last year and what we're up to this year. Wide open. I can go any direction in which you guys want to go. Very informal here and whatnot. So maybe just a little bit of history for you folks. We were organized in 1939. So we've been around for 82 years. We're actually the 2nd district in the state of Minnesota. Winona beat us by like 6 months. So been a while here. I've been with the district for 23 years. So it's kind of weird that I've been around for 30% of our age here. So
You've aged well, Dave. So
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, it's been really great. I've been with the Conservation Front since 1996. Started out with the DNR as a laborer, and then shifted over to the USDA there with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and then from there got on board with the district. A little bit more history. Both my folks grew up on dairy farms. My dad was from Michigan. My mom's from Stoddard. So got a lot of good farming background. Might be interested to know, Dewey, that I married Jennifer Dagendish and bought the farm there half the farm 17 years ago. So I know you and Les were down there plenty of times, having some coffee and other good treats.
A good treat, yes.
So, I have,
Are you going to tell them you're the same age as my daughter?
right, yep. I graduated with Teresa's daughter and Ann there, and there's a few Walters in that area. Dan Walter I graduated with as well. So everybody asks me if Dick is my father, and sometimes I play along, sometimes I don't. So
I think my sister-in-law wanted to adopt you after you met with her one time.
right, that was great. Yeah, these folks all over. So yeah, and just great people throughout Houston County, I tell you. And a buddy of mine's retiring here this year, and he's said several times he's going to miss working with the folks in Houston County. So, but anywho, I do have 5 elected supervisors. Our areas are a little bit different than your folks. We're more on area. I believe you guys are more on population. We have Jerry Welke down by Hoka. He's got La Crescent Township and Village, Hoka Township and Village, Mountain Prairie Township, and Union Township. We have District 2, Cecil Graff. He's Brownsville Township and Village, Crooked Creek Township, and Jefferson Township. District 3 was Roger Stenhoff. Now it's Kenny Anderson. They're Blackhammer Township, Spring Grove Township, and Village in Wilmington Township. And then District 4 is Glen Cruz, Caledonia Township and Village, Eichson Village, Mayville Township, Winnebago Township. And the last one, Supervisor 5, Matt Feldmeyer, Houston Township, Village, Money Creek Township, Sheldon Township, and Yucatan. So just a quick little recap on that. Not to bore you guys to death, but I think it's kind of nice for you guys to know. Here at the district, we have 5 employees. Myself, Dave Walter, I'm the district manager. Like I said, I started in '98 as a technician, was hired as a manager in 2015. Bod Scanlon, he's the assistant manager. We have Dan Wermager, he's a technician and also a certified conservation planner. We have Gene Miners as a technician and Janice Mesner as the admin assistant. Also, I supervise technical service area technician, Jason Rochester. So the TSA supports the district in the southeast Minnesota here, 11 county area. They have 2 engineers and 2 technicians. Jason, here's the office right next to me. They really support and the bigger projects, the manure storages, the stream bank protection and habitat, sinkhole treatments, some of the complex projects that we do here. I also have Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever Farm Bill biologist here at the office. Great staff member there, Eric Russell. He does incredible jobs with native grass plantings, shrub plantings, supporting a lot of that CRP vegetation type practices. And then we have USDA, the Natural Resources Conservation Service here. Gary Larson is the district conservationist, and Michelle Bowman is the engineering technician. So great staff here. Probably, I always like to say it's the best in the state, but take my word for it. So we run all time. We have 0 levy authority. So we're totally based on grants and also county allocation. So we run about 20 programs through the office. And there's about, our timesheet is crazy. We got 31 different spots that we can log our time to. So it's a huge grant tracking program. You can't overwork one grant and underwork another grant. Everything is tied to time and projects. So a lot of our programs that you guys are aware of, we're the technical agency for the Wetland Conservation Act. Put a fair amount of time into that. There again, it all depends on the activity in the county. Some years are really busy, maybe some years are a little bit less. We help manage the water plan. We actually are in the phase of 3 different water plans. We have our local water plan. Eric serves on the One Watershed, One Plan for the River, and then the new Winona La Crescent One Watershed, One Plan that Teresa is sitting on right now. That's in the planning phase. So just to update you folks on that a little bit. The Root River One Watershed, One Plan. We're in grant 2 of that implementation. So we did a full year of planning. We're the very first One Watershed, One Plan accepted in the state of Minnesota. Our first grant was $850,000. That expires this December. And I don't know if you know the numbers, Eric, or not, but we're like 90% done with that grant. And looks like that we'll be able to use all that money up by the end of the year pretty easily. Our second allocation was $1.4 million. We've already started working on that and got some good planning and projects going on that. And then Winona La Crescent with Teresa, I think we have close to $300,000 in planning for that. That goes towards a consultant to help us put the plan together. And then staff time, the day-to-day lead is Winona County. And then the River SWCD is the fiscal agent.
Yes.
So the fiscal agent for the ROOT is Winona SWCD, and the day-to-day is Fillmore SWCD. I don't know how much time you guys want to take. If you want me to go through all the programs we do, we got the aquatic invasive species program that I work with boaters and water rec folks on educating on the spread of invasive species. Everybody loves the buffer program. We administer that. Every year we do a spot check on a third of the county. Make sure that everybody's in compliance on that.
So when are you going to check mine there, Dave?
Oh,
just so I know.
I don't even know what area we're checking this year, but what did we do? 185 landowners last year with 189 parcels. So it's a pretty big area, but a lot of it's wooded, so that really helps out. There's always people abusing the program. We have several rim sites on the Houston County landscape. I check about 23 of those every year. We do have a surface water assessment grant that we've been doing for the last 6 years. Do water samples on that, and we're working with Winona County on that. We had an excellent cover crop program. Bob was able to hook a $250,000 grant on that. With those dollars, we're able to get a broadcast seeder out to the folks of Houston County to use that. And we're doing some soil health testing with it. A very small portion, I think it's like $10,000, goes to technical assistance. So everything's going out to the landowner on this. Our goal was to get 1,200 acres of cover crop on the Houston County landscape over 3-year time period. We were able to get that done in 1 year. So it was incredible landowners here in Houston County taking that on.
And after this rain, Dave, it's really growing. So
Yes, Yes, I've noticed it really greening up out there, and they probably won't terminate it, Eric, until what, maybe the first part of May. So we got a good month here for that to grow. And some folks don't terminate it until June. It's 3 foot tall before they terminate it. So good stuff there. I actually work in a couple different feedlot programs. We had Tom Hoshite. I worked with him on some manure storage, and Brad Olinger on a roof structure or above Freeburg. Great projects. And also the local 319 grant on small feedlot fixes, picket structures, buffer strips, roofs, and stuff like that.
Did you do some work out at Claire Olson's too, or?
Yes, we did. That was the Bear Creek watershed project.
Okay.
That expired last year. We did a roof structure and manure storage out. That was wonderful as well. Yes. We're working with John Dearson right now on some manure storage and 2 others that are just the beginning stages. So I always like to say we do 1 manure storage per year since I've been around. Sometimes it's a couple of years, 2 per year, and then nothing for another year, but usually 1 storage per year. We also help manage the Crooked Creek watershed. We have monthly meetings with them. You folks are probably know about a big structure going down in Freeburg this year. We plan on getting that out on bids here in the next month. We're waiting on a DNR dam safety permit right now, which should be in the mail to us right now.
On that project, Dave, sorry to interrupt you, but
no worries.
You made a decision, or the Crooked Creek Watershed Board made a decision last fall to use their own money to start that project, to get that underway instead of haggling with the engineering specs, or?
That's correct, Eric. So we had the landowner sign up for some federal cost share and with NRCS, and during the planning, survey, design of it, the state engineer had a lot of issues with it. It gets really complicated, not being in this business and knowing everything that happens around here. But they're licensed engineers. We're following all the standards and specs. They just have some nitpicky issues here and there that are hurdles that are just tough to get across.
Yeah.
And I want to take you guys on some tours here really bad. We've done the Winnebago Valley structures, holding up excellent. The Crooked Creek structures have been in place for over 50 years. It's like some of the issues are, you folks are familiar with these structures, these embankments with pipes and emergency spillways. And if you guys remember what happened there a couple of years ago over in Wisconsin, a lot of those structures washed out. Where the spillway meets the embankment of the hillside, were eroded out. And that's some of their big concerns. And they recommended, maybe put an emergency spillway away from that embankment, which would be on earth fill, which would cause really bad situations, so those are some of the hurdles that we're trying to cross. So it's going to meet standards and specs. Everything's going to be perfect, signed off by an engineer. They got the liability, and we're not qualified to use their payments as far as leverage federal funds. So Crooked Creek made the decision, let's get this thing going. We got to get it on the landscape. Let's move ahead. So long answer there, Eric, but that's kind of.
Yep. I know I was at that meeting when you guys down in that lake there, and I got lost trying to find the damn thing, but I'd never been down there before. That's quite something there. But anyway,
Yeah.
they said they they voted to do that, and so I know I brought that to the board that to let everybody know that we were going to back them on that resolution. I don't know if we ever did a resolution. I know I asked Jeff about that, but I don't think we ever really officially did. But
Right.
we could still do that if they would like that. But I remember Bob and Teresa and Greg were all ready for it to get it going. So
Yeah, the dollars that we have on it are Kirk Creek dollars. They do have levy authority, and they do projects every year, different BMP projects, best management practices. And so with the One Watershed, One Plan for the Rip River, we have about $370,000 set aside for that. Plus, that's out of the new grant. And any other slippage funds from the first grant we can put towards it as well. And then the cost estimate on the project, the last I heard, which was 8 months ago, is going to be close to that 600,000. So kind of so as far as projects that we got done last year, I think you guys received our annual report there, and you guys can go through that on all the projects we got done. We do have a new brush management program that we've been working on the last couple of years to try to cure the invasive multiflora rose and honeysuckle and pasture ground on that. So that's been a good program. We assist with the county on erosion control plans for building sites. Like I said, I don't know how much time you guys want to get into the weeds on this, but we always more work than what we can handle. This coming up year, we have 49 what we call grade stabilization structures. Those are our ponds. We have 62 waterways that are planned. We have 7 stream banks with wildlife habitat being planned, 12 diversions. Like I said, we have a few manure pits that are going to go in, a couple terrace systems, some water sediment control. So on the books right now, we have 147 projects on the books. Of those 147, we have 40 that are shovel ready. We have 54 EQIP applications that are ready to go. For 2021, we have like another 40 to address. So we have a lot more need out there than what we can cover in cost share assistance. It sounds like a lot of projects for 1 year, and they're not 1 year projects. Like I said earlier, there's just so many hurdles to cross nowadays with the cultural resources protection out there that we need to address, geological potential sinkholes and formations that we need to cross. Sometimes these designs get really complicated. Sometimes it's a 2-year wait before we can get actually something on the ground. So big workload here, but we do have great partners and a great team here in Houston County that you can be proud of. So we can discuss a lot more. 10 o'clock here already and stuff, and you guys have some action items, but like I said before, I need to get you guys out there and show you what we're doing, and we can learn a lot more outside than we can talk about here and stuff too. So
Question I have, are you involved with this deal that we're gonna talk about later here with, looks like it's WMA, Wildlife Management deal on the River Daihoka? Does that go across your desk too?
It really doesn't. That's more of the DNR side of things. And I wasn't even aware of that until I seen it on the agenda. We do work, the wildlife manager is Don Ramsden. I do work with him. If there's any invasive species we need to take care of, any burning, native grass plantings, any erosion. So I've worked with Donna quite a bit over the years. He's a lot of years under his belt as well. So there's quite a few of those wildlife management areas in Houston County that we worked on. So, yep.
Dave, I know you used to do the feedlot program there at Soil and Water. Do you guys have any, would you be entertain the idea of doing sewer inspections for Houston County?
Sure. I know Bob Scanlon here with the district. He's a certified septic inspector. So, and like I said, last year we did 24 building sites. So I don't know if it'd be a real big workload. And I know they're updating septic systems. I don't know how many inspections Houston County did last year. But yeah, it's certainly something that we can look into to help out the county here. Would that be, is it long-term or just until you guys get somebody else hired through environmental services, or maybe you're not hiring anybody to fill that position from Jim?
Well, it'd be temporary, maybe at the beginning, or it could be something long-term too. We'd have to do some negotiating, but
Sure.
we are
Sure.
advertising for a hire too. So
Okay. Yeah, for sure. We can get together with Aaron or Tess on a MOU or MOA.
Yep.
And we can let you know what those services would run you folks too. We have built-in hourly rate for our grants that we charge mileage and time and materials on. So we already have the rates for you. So it'd be pretty easy, fast thing for you guys to know. As well.
okay.
I don't know if Rick Frank would be another one to reach out to. I don't know if he's still certified or if they have to be certified inspectors.
Mm-hmm.
So he might be someone to reach out to too.
Well, it's good to see that Crooked Creek Shing thing get going this year finally. So
Yes. This was, we brought it to light during that 07 rain event. Got shot down a year or two later, and we were able to resurrect it again in light of the One Watershed, One Plan. And it's been battle against battle, anything you can think of, wetlands to cultural resources to sinkholes to you name it. DNR hydrologists, Army Corps of Engineers, everybody's got their fingers in it.
yep.
All right.
I appreciate it, folks. You can always reach out to me at any time, any moment. If you want to take a ride someday across the countryside, give me a buzz. Anytime. We're open to anything. So always something going on every single day. So.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Yep. Thank you.
And with that, we will move on to action items. First one is a consideration of approving resolution 2121 from county for purchase of approximately 19.2 acres from Tim Bitchell to add to the wildlife management. That's you, or Brandon.
I'm here, sir. Thank you all for having me today. My name is Brandon Shad. I'm the Area Wildlife Supervisor out of the Rochester DNR Wildlife Office. Me and my staff, I have two assistants, Don Ramsden, who was mentioned just a minute ago, and Ryan Tebow, and we cover the 6-county southeastern Minnesota area where we primarily manage state wildlife management areas, and we're also involved, with some of the more regulatory aspects regarding hunting seasons for deer and things like that. This is my first time before you guys, and so I'll give you a little bit of background on this project along the Root River. We started acquiring lands along the Root River near Hoka in the early 2000s, and it was following several large flood events, that happened at that time, and some of the agricultural levees had breached on the north side, in particular, of the river there, and they had, taken note that it reduced the impacts of the flooding, by being able to open that floodplain up. And so at that time, we had, brought this project before the county and gotten support for pursuing some acquisitions within the floodplain of the Root River, where we could purchase some of those lands that were susceptible to flooding and were protected by those agricultural levees to restore them, provide public recreation areas, and then also hopefully in the future provide some degree of floodwater storage at such a time when we were able to acquire enough portions that we could retire some of those failing levees. So this tract in particular that I'm bringing to you today is owned by Mr. Beekle, and it's just under 20 acres, and this was actually a part of the very first tract that we acquired with county board approval in the early 2000s. And due to a technical issue, there were some issues with the legal description that we had trouble working through at the time, and so Mr. Beekle had retained this property, but we acquired the remainder of his property at that time. Since that time, we've worked with the township and retired, a lot of that township road, that went back to Mr. Beekle's property, and to take some of that, maintenance burden off of the township. And we've, acquired adjacent properties as well. And this 19 acres is something that we would like to, again, request approval from the county to be allowed to purchase. You may or may not be familiar, we haven't, at least in the 3 years that I've been in the Rochester office, I know we haven't been before the county board to request an approval like this, and so I don't know how familiar you guys are, but when the DNR acquires lands with internal funding sources, such as we're proposing here, part of the process is that we need to get approval from the county in the form of a resolution that supports the acquisition. In this case, the funding that would be used to acquire this property is Reinvest in Minnesota RIM credits that are the owners, the local Winona River Pheasants Forever chapter. And so we've got an active Pheasants Forever chapter in the area that would like to use their accumulated RIM credits to purchase this land. And so, they'd be vested in that, and they'd also like to help us with the restoration, the grassland habitats on this property after it's acquired. This is a really great complex that provides, a lot of recreational opportunities for people. And like I said, this being an in-holding, these are the kind of properties that are important, if we want to be able to kind of restore some of that floodplain connectivity and provide some floodwater storage. This parcel is right, it's surrounded by the wildlife area, but it's right on the riverbank. And so, in-holdings like this are important to be able to complete that process. We did discuss this with the township, and they did not have any concerns with acquisition. And so we did contact that local government unit and talk to them about it. And the last thing that I had on my list here, before I open it up to questions from you guys, is in regard to payment in lieu of taxes. You're probably familiar. You guys get payment in lieu of taxes on state lands, and it varies, but depending on the type of state land, but on these acquired wildlife management areas, it's usually very competitive with what property taxes would be. The estimate for the PILT payment on this particular property for the first 2 years, projected out is a little bit over $550, and the taxes over the last 3 years, the property taxes were right around $400. So in this case, it's estimated that the PILT payments will actually be a little bit more than the existing property taxes, at least at the beginning of the cycle here. So hopefully, like I said, I'll open it up to you guys as questions or concerns that I can help address now, and discussion, and hopefully I explain things thoroughly. But
So the DNR is the one that's actually purchasing the land, or is it Pheasants Forever?
the DNR is the one. So the state of Minnesota holds those RIM credits in trust, and it's kind of like a matching program. And so the RIM credits match the state's investment. It's a required 1-to-1 match. And so the state is the one that will be the owner of the property, and we're utilizing some of that local conservation group's RIM credits. And so we're kind of partners in it. And when we're using those RIM credits, like I said, one of the requirements that through statute and through our acquisition process is getting formal approval from the county for that purchase. So,
is this tillable land?
It is currently tillable. This particular site, several of the breaches that occurred in the levee occurred actually right on this property. So it is tillable, but it's also subject to flooding. Our interim plan, when we get it, would be to continue to till it for probably 2 years until we can get plans made, for a phased out retirement, just through a cooperative agreement. But our plans would be to eventually phase that land out of production.
In Fillmore County, they have a situation where they actually have a committee that's set up for situations like this to review it. And I think they also have a recommendation, because there's no authority or power to do it, but for when you acquire tillable land, that it has to stay tillable or farmed for so many years or something like that. I don't know if you're familiar with that, or
yeah. I think what you may be referring to, there is a statute regarding the Richard J. Dorr Memorial Forest, and so there's a statute related to that. That basically, if the state is acquiring land for that state forest, that they would either need to, I think the way it's worded is return a commensurate amount of tillable acres or seek county approval. That's specific to the state forest, and so it doesn't apply to wildlife management area acquisitions. But in a similar fashion, basically what we're doing today is requesting approval, to purchase this land, and eventually, knowing that we would retire it and get county approval. And so the end result is kind of the same. We're asking for approval to buy this, and knowing that we would, eventually phase this land out of production. But we really feel that the benefits that would come, with floodplain restoration, potential floodwater mitigation, recreational opportunities and things like that, would really benefit the community as a whole. So,
So a couple of questions with regard to recreational activity. What's the access to that?
currently, it's this parcel is currently kind of landlocked back by the wildlife management area. I provided some maps in your packet, and so this is surrounded on 3 sides by the existing wildlife area. It's kind of at the end of a dead-end road. As I said, that road used to be a township road, and we've worked, as the state acquired those lands, we've worked with the township to vacate some of those roads, so to relieve some of the maintenance burden on them. Currently, it's a private road that Tim Beekle has access to, to maintain and access that property. But he's the only landowner, I believe, besides our interior lands that is serviced by that cartway. So basically, it's accessible, right now to Mr. Beekle through that easement he has with us, or through the wildlife area. And so it's surrounded, you could access it from the existing, wildlife area, or you could access it from the river, I suppose.
Yeah, I know Hoka Township closed that road after the flood, and then they vacated it and started another road over there for walkers to get back into there.
Yeah, and I was hoping
21.
and I was hoping that Don, my assistant Don Ramsden, could be here. He was unable to be here. He just had something else come up that required his attention, but a training thing. But and he can speak a little bit more to that. I'm aware of that, but I'm not aware of the details of it. That was before my time here. But we are working, with the township, on another portion of the WMA. There's some township roads that the bridge washed out, and so we're working on, the vacation process with that road as well, to, like I said, to try and, these roads that used to serve multiple landowners that don't anymore, to try and work to get those retired, to take the burden off the township as well. So
The second half to my question was with regard to the recreational aspect of that. There's a bike trail that ends in Houston. They talk about a bike trail going down to Hoka. Is this the type of recreational use that would be allowed through there, or is the bike trail got to be in a different location?
There are occasions when we have bike trails adjacent to state wildlife management areas, and so they're not completely incompatible, but typically, that would be, through a separate division at the DNR. We have a Parks and Trails division that works with acquiring, either access easements or fee title, corridors to install those trails. And that's a little bit outside my purview. And so I'm not sure exactly, how that process works, but, in some areas we do have them adjacent to each other, so it's not impossibility. But I can say that, when we acquire lands for wildlife management area, like typically what we're talking about is like dispersed recreation, hunting, fishing, things like that, are the primary things that we see, the areas being used for, bird watching and hiking and things like that are allowed to. Typically the only thing that we don't allow is, like motorized vehicles, off-road and stuff like that. So, so basically, most forms of outdoor recreation are allowed. We wouldn't be, the Division of Wildlife would not be building bike trails, but like I said, if it's something where in the future they wanted to put a bike trail, adjacent to it or something, that would be probably a different process, I think. But I'm sorry. Hopefully that answered your question. I don't know.
No, but
Well, Bob, just for information, Bob, that trail would be on the other side of the river, the old railroad dike. So it wouldn't be on that side if it were to become into fruition.
Yeah, and typically when we acquire a WMA, we would not then turn that land into a state trail. We run into limitations with our funding and stuff like that. which comes from, federal excise taxes and hunting and fishing licenses, and so we do have restrictions there. So we would not propose building a bike trail across this. It's all floodplain anyway. It's not really a suitable site for it.
Well, in the future, I would like to talk with you or Mr. Ramstead to maybe possibility of setting up a committee just to have a review process to look it over when you're, because I assume this isn't going to be the last bit of land you're going to want to buy. So
yeah, and as you know, and as it's pretty opportunistic. Like I said, the entirety of this wildlife area has been purchased over the last since like 2001 or 2002. So like the last 20 years, and as opportunities come up like this one with Mr. Beagle, then we, begin the process of working to vet it and then, working with our local government units. And so I'm certainly open to discussion, advanced discussions, if you guys want something like that as well. Just being cognizant, I'll rely on you guys on how to pursue that with open meeting regulations and stuff like that, making sure that we're meeting with everybody and discussing it or however you want to do it. But we do make it a point, even though it's not a requirement, to make sure and meet with our townships, when we're doing this, because they're also impacted by this, and making sure that they don't have questions or concerns is important to us as well. So we do try and cover our bases, but but I am open to enhanced communication in the future if you'd like. So,
Teresa.
I just want to say we went through this. We were the adjoining landowners down there next to Tim Beekles, and it would be underwater 2, 3, 4 feet every spring. And we went with the DNR on this. And at that time, we were kind of insistent that the townships get notified and the county gets notified so that everybody knew what was going on and got issues with the pill payments and everything. And it worked out really good. There's a lot of pelicans down there, egrets. It's really a good use of the land. And Tim's was right next to us, and he had the same problem, being flooded out every year.
Yeah, and that was part of the reason, that previously this project has had a lot of support, I think, is because we see it up along the Zumbro also, as people farming these areas, we're having a lot more of these high volume flood events, that are increasingly problematic for those riparian landowners that are trying to farm. And in some cases, it's so problematic that they're, unable to secure crop insurance and stuff because they've had, consecutive years of failure. And so, when we go after, an acquisition, we really do try and vet it, and there's different things that we're looking for. Building on existing wildlife areas, instead of starting a new project somewhere, trying to take an existing area and build upon it. In cases like this is kind of an in-holding now. I know the one borders the river, but, the remainder of the area, it's surrounded by a state wildlife management area. And so, consolidating that holding, for ease of management, like I said, in this case, it's a step in the process towards allowing us to retire some of those levees along the river to increase, floodwater storage capacity. And then when we're looking at land, we typically try and avoid, tillable acres, but we will consider tillable acres in cases like this where it's tillable, but it's poor tillable acres, and there's a lot of issues with trying to farm these parcels. And so I don't have any desire. I do come from a farm background too, and I don't have any desire to take the best farmland out of production. But I think in a lot of cases these these people that are coming to us with an interest to sell, to the state are recognizing that it's in some cases becoming increasingly more difficult to make a living on some of these acres given our current precipitation patterns. So
All right. So
I'll
is
make
the-
a motion to approve the resolution for the acquisition of the Timbico property.
there a second?
Second, I just noted that, they got the highways labeled wrong on the map here, but, that
my apologies.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we will vote by roll.
District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes. Motion carries. Action item number 2. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you, sir.
Number 2 is consider awarding the low bid for SAP 28599099 to the Icon Contractors in the amount of $926,798 for the replacement on Freeburg Ridge Road in the Crooked Creek Township. Brian.
Yes. Good morning, commissioners. So we bid out this project here a couple weeks ago, had 3 bidders. The low bid was Icon Constructors LLC. They've done a lot of bridge replacements in Houston County over the past few years. The low bid did come in 14.37% above the estimate. We reviewed the estimate to see if there was some bust within our estimate of why they were so far over that estimate. And we kind of came to a couple conclusions. One is that the estimate's a little bit outdated. It was prepared here a couple years ago, and it was updated a little bit, but wasn't using current numbers near the end of last season. And then this construction season numbers have gone up around the state as well. So with speaking with our consultant and MnDOT and everyone that's been involved with this project on up to this point, their recommendation is to award the contract to Icon. We do not feel it's going to be any benefit to reject the bids and rebid it later on. We don't think we're going to get a better cost. Funding is available for this job as bids, so it's going to be funded with the town bridge account along with some special town bridge money that'll come from the state.
So is this what certain products that were high on the bid? Is it the rock or the concrete or?
You know, like with their bid in particular, the earthwork numbers were higher than what we expected. The bridge removal was higher than what we were expected, and some of the bridge items itself were higher than what we were expecting. But then if you compare numbers with their bid to the next other 2 bidders and stuff, numbers fluctuate some as what aspect is high. It just depends on where they put their profit within their bids and stuff. But overall, it's just overall prices have gone up. Just like you hear about home prices going up with treated timber prices going up. The bridges still kind of have issues with all different aspects.
Does this have a negative effect on your township bridge fund?
Yes and no. The quick answer is no. Our town bridge account money gets less and less every year as we have less and less deficient township bridges. So, 5-6 years ago, we were getting 3 times the amount of town bridge account money that we're currently getting. However, there is a second account at the state that has additional money that's used for township bridge replacements to help backfill, get you more money if you have a need for it. So they don't, some counties with very few bridges, they would never get enough money to replace any bridges if they didn't have that pot of funding. So was talking to the state, they will find us the money. If we have bridge projects ready to be replaced, they will get us the money that we need when we need it.
Well, they got all kinds of money now, so.
Greg?
Yeah, Brian, does Freeburg, they gotta pay like 20,000 towards that bridge too?
Yep. So that'll be, the same as every other township bridge project, where they'll pay 20,000, 10 toward construction, 10 toward design.
And Crooked Creek had contacted me, wondering about the fill. They were wondering if we were gonna run down that brand new seal coating or if you were gonna stay off of that. They would like it if we could stay off of that brand new seal coating with them trucks coming in with sand and fill. Is that possible?
I guess on what road are you talking about? Talking about
We seal coated last summer.
on 240 or 24. Yes, and anything that we're, I don't know where the fill is going to be coming from for this project. So, we're definitely not going to encourage any contractors to drive, a bunch of heavy loads across roads can't handle it, whether it's county road or a township road.
Well, they were just wondering, they really like the road they got right now and they don't really want to get it wrecked, so.
Yeah, neither do I.
I'd bring that up. They were inquired about it.
Won't they be coming on 249, Brian?
Yeah, so this is off of 249. I don't know where the fill material is going to be coming from. Where the gravel is coming from for this project. All of that will be determined once we start talking to the contractors. So, but we always do. We have language in the contract for them to maintain haul roads, and they do need to get approval on haul roads. So we'll definitely try to steer them away from roadways that they could damage.
Well, if they use river sand, they can probably come right up 249, or there's a Kruko sand pit down there too. So.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to approve or more discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Brian, excuse me, Bob. Brian, is Looney Valley Bridge and on Houston Township scheduled for this year, just for curiosity's sake?
Yeah, as long as we can get everything ready with, so right now the plan has been submitted to us. We've reviewed it. We've provided comments back to the consultant. We should have plans ready to go to the state here probably early next week. So we'll have approval from the state here soon. So really what the schedule is now is we need to get the approval from the state, which is probably 2 to 3 weeks out, and then getting the plat prepared, land acquired, and then we'll start looking at what do we have for timing. Ideally, we'd get it built this fall. That is a possibility still, assuming that we can get the money that we need for that. That is a big project. We're pushing, $750,000 plus. If not this fall, then we'll work on getting it done right away next spring.
Okay.
They've got plans to do one in Wilmington yet, Brian?
Yeah, so Wilmington Township, those plans are all somewhat, I would say, on hold at this point. They're in the tentative schedule where we had them planned, not for 2021. But I'm going to meet with the township to kind of talk about what the schedule is for those projects, what they want and when, before we put a whole lot of time and effort into that. So we kind of have a tentative schedule for those projects. I know they have some questions on funding and stuff that we need to work out.
Just one more thing, and this is not a different subject, but I got 2 phone calls last night from farmers in Yucatan and Sheldon.
Okay.
And can you guess what that was about, Brian?
Road bans?
Nope.
Potholes.
They got letters in the mail.
Okay.
Farming the right of way. You guys are gonna come and mow their crops down if we don't stay off, or is that?
So, yeah. So the letters are. So we have a couple different letter templates. So the one that was sent was the. I don't know if I want to say more civil one of the two letters.
No, it was. Oh, okay. I'll tell them that then. So.
But yeah, I mean, we don't want to, really impact farmers, but we do need to protect our right of way as well. We kind of want to give them a heads up, expecting that they're going to probably give us a call when they're able to call and talk about what's happening. What's happening is there's going to be new fiber lines installed within that area that they're farming within the right of way. They shouldn't be farming that right of way to begin with. They just need to keep their crops back another 10 to 15 feet from where they're at, and they will be fine. So I've been in contact with one already and stuff, and I think there was 4 letters that went out. So there's not a ton of letters, but they do need to understand though that the right of way is the right of way, and that they're not allowed to farm in the right of way. So,
well, in my defense, Brian, I've been only farming that farm 2 years, and I've just farmed it the way it was. I didn't realize it was that close, so I will make sure I move over a little. So
okay, well, I didn't know it was farming it, and that's some of the issues that we have too. Is that a lot of times, landowners aren't farming their own land; it's renters that are farming it. And but we can talk about what field in particular. And
but you only had 4 letters that went out.
I think there's 4, maybe 5. And this is across, I would say, the majority of the northwest portion of the county, northwest quarter of the county. So a lot of parcels. There really wasn't a whole lot of farms.
Well, I heard from half of them last night, so.
You would have if you got 2. So.
Because I didn't get the letter. The landlord got the letter. So.
What's going on with them farmers down there in district?
Most, actually in those areas, most of the farmers do a really good job of staying out of the right of way. So I was happy to see how few farmers are actually in that area. And like I said, most of these have been going on for a long time, and it's just at that time now where we need to address it. So
Now moving on to action item number 3. Approval to negotiate a 5-year master agreement contract with Bolton and Mink and work order number 1 for the environmental review. Brian.
Yes. So as part of funding to utilize FAA and MnDOT aeronautic funding for consultant work, we need to go through a qualifications and consultant selection process. The limits within that process that the selection can only be good for up to 5 years. And also when there is a major change in what might be happening for projects going forward, you need to go through that selection process again. So we went through a selection process back in 2018. At that point, the county changed from from Mead and Hunt to Bolton and Mink. So Bolton and Mink has been our consultant for the last 3 years. We went out for a selection process again. And this time we only had one consultant, which was Bolton and Mink, that submitted for the statement of qualifications to the county. Not uncommon for counties to get their current consultant and not other consultants. There's not a ton of consultants that do this type of work. So what I would like to do is prepare an agreement with Bolton and Mink to continue being our consultant for the next 5 years. The terms and talking with Bolton and Mink would probably use identical language as the contract from 3 years ago. There is no dollar amount set within that. It's just, they'll have all of our data for planning purposes. And then when projects come up, we'll work with them on preparing a work order for that task. And then they will get us the costs, and we'll get approvals on those items separately. Which gets into part 2 and into action item number 3 is, assuming that the board wants to go ahead with the consultant selection and continue to use Bolton and Mink, I would like to work with getting a work order put in place for the environmental review that would be needed in order to acquire any land out at the airport. So they would review the 7.3 acres adjacent to the current access road into the south. Look at if there's any environmental impacts from wetlands or old historic sites or anything that's on that property. And I would bring that to the board probably in 2 weeks for approval on that. I would estimate that cost would be in the $15,000 to $20,000 range. And that'll be at more than likely a 90-10 funding split. So it'll be, $1,500 to $2,000 for the county. Maybe MnDOT would step in and pay a little bit of that cost as well. That would go hand in hand with action item number 3, which is the appraisal for that same portion of land. So at this point, what I'm looking at is, before we go to work on drafting up language for a contract, do we want to proceed with them and move forward with that land acquisition portion of that first project?
Bolton and Mink has done a good job for us in the past. They're familiar with everything that we've got, and it would make sense to continue the contract with them as far as the improvements to the airport that are being discussed.
I agree that we should continue, especially with they got the bases started and we're into that phase.
I'll make a motion to approve that contract.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the negotiation of a 5-year master agreement with Bolton and Mink. Further discussion?
So by approving this contract, this is going to start the process of the expansion.
This alone sets the firm that we will work with for any project moving forward, whether it's a maintenance project such as like this year, we're going to be doing a culvert lining project. So any project we do in the next 5 years, or unless something drastically changes, we'll continue to use Bolton and Mink for. The other approvals beyond this point would be toward that first phase of the expansion.
Well, we've already got the approval for the engineering for the maintenance that it's being done so far, right? Or
Yep.
That's coming up.
Yeah, but there might be other maintenance projects. It seems like there's always something, whether it's some lighting improvements or electrical work or other culvert replacement, paving, surfacing, crack sealing, anything that's out there. We use them to help us with the paperwork and getting the proper approvals.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
So the second part of number 3 is the environmental review.
Yes. So in order to proceed toward the land acquisition, we have a couple things that are needed out there. We need to do an environmental review that needs to be done per federal requirements before we can acquire land. We also need to do an appraisal on the land, and we also need to do an independent review of independent appraisal review. So there's actually 3 additional items now that need to be done before we can buy the land and get approval for reimbursement for the land from federal funding. So I got a quote from one appraisal to do for $2,500. Like I said, I'm estimating that this environmental review is going to be in that $15,000 to $20,000 range. To do that, we'll need to get a second independent appraisal review done. All of that before we can go to the landowner to attempt to purchase the 7.3 acres, and that'll cost an additional however much money depending on what the appraisal results are. So I'd like to start working on getting that agreement put into place for that environmental review. But if the board doesn't want to move forward with that land acquisition at this point, then there's no sense in trying to get this environmental review done. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page before I put the time and effort into prepare a document for approval on that environmental side.
How much does county got to pay on the environmental side? How much is that do we?
It'll more than likely be 90-10 split, 90% federal, 10% local. Sometimes the state will kick in 5% of that 10% local. So it'll be $2,000 on the high side. If it ends up being a $1,500 review or $15,000 review and the state covers half of that 10%, it could be as low as $750.
So between appraisal of the land and the environmental assessment, we could spend probably $4,500, $5,000 probably. That'd be the county's part.
Yes.
And we're gonna save probably what, $6,000 on the culvert that we won't have to pay. The state picked up. Is that correct?
This culvert, I believe a lot of the culvert was going to be paid for by the Arnold Falk grant. So we might not be saving there. What that maybe has done is freed up that Arnold Falk grant money to be either given back to them or to request that money gets used to cover something else at the airport.
Can that be used, that Arlen Falk money, to cover this environmental thing and the appraisal?
With their approval, I believe the environmental was already submitted and approved for them. The appraisal was not, so that'll be requesting that we change how that funding is used. But yes, if they approve it, we absolutely can.
The purpose of this land acquisition is for extending runway, or what's that 7 acres for?
Yeah, so the primary purpose is there's a couple of things. One is that we are just barely above the minimum threshold on the number of hangars that are based out of the airport. So if we drop down a couple planes below where we're currently at, we will lose the 150,000 or potentially lose the 150,000 worth of federal entitlements that's allocated to the airport every year. So by buying this land, it gives space to build additional hangars out there, and they could be either built by the county and leased out, or it could be providing space for private individuals to lease land from us and build their own hangar on top of it. So how those hangars get built, that'll be determined later. But this will be to have that space. The second aspect is that as you get more use out there and maybe have some planes that come in that are a little bit bigger than the typical plane that flies out there now, we still do have some planes that are in a different tire classification. The front row or some of the hangars that are out there, some of the actually a lot of the stuff that's out there right now are too close to the runway, where they really should be moved back for safety reasons in case there was an accident out at the runway or at the airport. So this land kind of starts moving some of those key aspects back away from the runway and provide space for additional sites. So if we're going to move forward doing something, it is good to get this land purchased when we have an opportunity. But there is nothing that absolutely requires us to do this. It's just what's the future planning going to be at the airport? What do we want to have the airport? Do we want it to grow, be sustainable, or do we leave it right as it is right now?
Is there data showing that we need to have this expansion for them bigger hangars for bigger planes?
Yes. So the data that we got from the FAA and MnDOT Aeronautics all says that yes, that there is demand for additional hangars out there. That's what their data says. From us here at the county, we get inquiries anywhere from 2 to maybe 15 a year. It varies by the year for people looking to rent space. Sometimes it's short term, sometimes it's long term. How much space they're looking for, and do they really want to move here or not, or are they just kind of inquiring in case they can't find someplace else? I don't know, but there's definitely people that are asking. So I can't guarantee that someone's going to want to build out there, that they want to lease space, but there's definitely some inquiries.
With what the FAA says as far as where our existing hangars are and the condition of our existing hangars, it's a look to move as far as the future is concerned and to meet their requirements as far as the setbacks on the hangars. It would give us the potential for growth. It would also give us an area where we could have, what is the maintenance shop called, Brian, as far as having like the Rushford Airport's got the maintenance guy? What's that called?
Yep, FBO, a fixed-based operator.
Yeah. So we would also have then the potential of an area that we could have a fixed-based operator, which would then create more availability as far as the usage of the airport and people wanting to locate here because their planes could be fixed here as well as far as with the fixed-based operator. But if we don't look forward, if we don't do this as far as the 7.2 acres, there is no potential.
Who pays for that fixed-based operator?
That can function differently depending on what they do. Sometimes they lease a building space, or they get provided building space, and then in return for that, they might manage the fuel system. They might mow the airport. Sometimes they get a profit off fuel sales. It really varies by the business.
So you'd be a county employee then?
No. This would be, if anything, like an independent contractor that you hire to do work for the county, depending on what they do. So,
would it be county funded, right? I mean, county would pay towards this FBO.
We could, but depending on how it's set up, if they don't provide any services to the county, then it could be where we don't pay them anything. It just provides a place for them to operate their business out of.
Okay. On this, go ahead, Bob.
Do it.
I was just going to say that with that information, I feel it's something that we can look at the future, making sure that we have adequate room for the maybe larger vehicles, land close by. If we don't take it now, it may not be available in the future. I think it's something we should go for.
On the project approach sheet here, it's got the county funding column here, and it spreads out to 2028. And I've added up the costs without the first two initial costs that have already been paid for. But now I assume that county funding column, is that our 10%, Brian?
Depending on what the aspect is, some things have different funding percentages that's covered. Areas directly in front of a hangar has directly that first 20 feet might have no or might be 100% local. You get into other areas depending on if it's used for operations or maintenance, and some of it's 1/3, 2/3. So it varies throughout. One of the things I would like to point out with that, so that is, a plan that's kind of showing what's, potentially could happen out there over the next 10 years. And there's a 25-year plan for out there at the airport. The primary purpose of that is to show that there's a process, a plan in place of how the entitlement funds could be spent, or but it doesn't tie us into anything, lock us into anything. We can always change that stuff. The one thing that the FAA doesn't want to see is that you have a 10-year plan that no money is being spent out at the airport for improvements, and we're getting $150,000 worth of entitlement money every year, which means, you know, we're going to get to that $600,000. We get 4 years worth of allotment. We start losing money. They want to see that there is a use for that, a plan for that. So, you know, it kind of lists projects, but those projects can change in some ways, and it can also change, particularly like the hangars. You know, is it built by the county or are they built by private individuals? So that really changes costs a lot too.
Well, it's not going to help. I mean, we need businesses to come to Caledonia, and if we don't have an airport down the road, that's not a very good deal either. So, I mean, if we want to grow Caledonia or Houston County, we pretty much got to do something.
Look to the future. I'd make a motion to approve the work order for environmental review process.
Can we rephrase that a little bit, Teresa, and put in there whatever the Arlen Falk don't pick up, we'll take care of? That would be a good way to put it.
I thought that's for sure is how it works anyway, isn't it? No. Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
they have an Arlen Falk grant out there, and if we could use that, that would be nice. It would save the county some money, but if they won't pay for everything, we can pick up some of it.
Well, you got to get permission from them first because it's not money that they designated for. So
That's right. We
I don't know how you could put that in a motion.
I don't want to put in the motion. I think
I don't know that we really need a motion on this, as long as we kind of have a consensus of what we want to do. I can work with the Arlen Falk grant individual along with Bolton Mink, get an agreement put in place and come back and hopefully in 2 weeks with a
that sounds good.
more firm price and how that might be funded.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Is the same true for the appraiser?
So for the appraisal, as long as we know that we want to move forward for that, I actually do have, you know, that $2,500 cost. That is the quote that was provided to me from John Campy. You know, he's an appraiser that has, he's come down here, he's looked at the parcel, he's taken a peek, he's starting to gather some information on the appraisal. He is saying he can get the appraisal done here in a matter of weeks. So there is not a big wait to get this done, so it keeps the stuff moving forward quickly. So for this aspect, it sounds like we're going to move forward on stuff. So if the board is willing to, I would entertain a motion to get approval to hire John Campy to do an appraisal for the 7.3 acres for a cost of $2,500.
And of that $2,500,
Yep.
this is the county and
Yeah, so this would be that 90-10 split. It'll be initially paid for up front. We cannot submit or get reimbursement of this until we get to that point where we have an agreement in place for the final land purchase value. So we spend this money now and then we get reimbursed when we get the land acquired, whether it's later on this summer or next year or hopefully not 2 years down the road. So there's a lag in that reimbursement, but ultimately, once we get that land acquired, we will get reimbursed by 90%.
so the actual cost, final cost is $250,
Yes.
maybe less if the state kicks in 5%.
Yep.
So you need approval to hire the appraiser for the airport. Cost of $2,500. Got a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
No.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4, District 4, think she's saying yes. District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you.
Next item is action item 5, the approval of the 21-23 labor agreement between Law Enforcement Labor Services Local Number 60. And that's the non-licensed jailers dispatchers unit in Houston County. Tess?
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, the union and the county came to an agreement. The union actually ratified the contract. I should say the union and the negotiations committee came to a tentative agreement, which was subsequently ratified by the union, LELS number 60. The contract was in your packet and it's before you. It is consistent with what we have been going forward with the other units, with a 2.5% increase for year 2021 retro to January 1. No wages for discussions for 22 or 23, pending a wage opener with a subsequent to the compensation study.
I'll make a motion to approve the labor agreement.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to approve the labor of the agreement between Law Enforcement Local Number 60 in Houston County. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1.
Yes.
District 2.
Yes.
District 3.
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries. Number 6 is approving the 21-23 labor agreement, Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, MAPE, and Houston County.
Commissioners, similarly to what you just passed with the LELS unit, we have a 2.5% increase with a reservation for wage consideration for years 22 and 23 pending the compensation study. There were some minor language changes. However, that did not impact financial tails.
I make a motion we approve the contract.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to approve the contract with MAPE. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1.
Yes.
District 2.
Yes.
District 3.
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Number 7 is consider a temporary G-Cube services for septic inspection services. This is Aaron and Tess as well.
I'll defer to Aaron at this time. I was involved in drafting the language. He is the technical expert on the agreement.
Morning, Commissioners. This agreement would be a temporary stopgap measure so that the septic program in Houston County can carry on uninterrupted until we find a permanent solution for the replacement of the septic employee who recently resigned. G-Cube provided us pricing for all work that would foreseeably be encountered in Houston County. Most of our systems are type 1 systems. We do have a decent amount of type 4 systems going in. However, G-Cube has the certification to do all of that work. They have a similar arrangement with many townships in Olmsted County and have previously provided similar services for Mower County.
All right.
So are you certified?
Yes.
Amelia certified?
No.
How many hours does she need to be certified?
I guess it's based on experience, and that's not measured in hours. Measured in experiences.
Okay, so when would she have her certification?
She would have that when she completes the remaining experiences. It's hard to predict when those opportunities might present themselves.
So when you start doing sewer inspections, she could go along and get that experience?
Correct. She needs several different varieties of experiences, and she also needs the time availability to accompany to have those experiences. So it's hard to pinpoint when precisely that might happen.
Well, I think we should pursue the soil and the water and have them maybe do our septic systems, and we could even transfer the feedlot over there if we need to free up Amelia. There's a lot of options here without jumping to the gun of hiring somebody right away.
Respectfully, Commissioner, this is a temporary stopgap here, and I think that if we look at what we're getting from G Cubed and what we might get from soil and water, there's perhaps a difference in the product that they would provide us. Again, G Cubed is type 4 advanced inspectors. Soil and water is not. Commissioner Johnson had asked for some prior information on a previous inspection that we highlighted during our personnel committee meeting, which is perhaps indicative of the quality of work that we might get if we sent it to soil and water. We would likely have a different product through G Cubed.
How many inspections a year are being needed or done? I guess I don't have that number in front of me. How many per year, roughly?
50.
It varies. Last year we had 52 permits issued, I believe.
Now I remember that number. Thank you.
So what you're saying, Aaron, is that you don't think you get the quality of work out of soil and waters?
I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm saying that I'm confident we'd get a high quality of work from G Cubed.
I know I've talked to several installers, and their concern is their G Cube's quite a busy outfit because they service quite a big area. And with the sewer application or installation season going on, they got to go by the weather. And so if they need somebody there today, are they going to be able to be there today?
Well, I guess I don't know if it's today, and I don't know that the county ever was able to do today too, but we rely on weather forecasts just like anybody who works in the elements does to try to plan ahead a bit. But G Cube does have new staff on available to do borings. I think they would have 3 folks available, and they indicate that they would be able to provide a prompt turnaround when requested for services.
Additionally, Aaron and I talked, there may be times that we have somebody that's ready to go, and let's say GQ has a scheduled meeting with them for tomorrow, but yet we have all of a sudden unexpected weather. Certainly, Aaron talked about him popping over and being able to do some of those inspections. So this isn't just relying on one organization. This is actually more like, if you will, in a way, a team approach, not that dissimilar to what the county has been providing when we had historically the 2 inspectors. So I know Aaron and I, when I was putting this together, really had a discussion on putting a proposal together that would best meet the residents' needs and as timely of responses as absolutely possible. And we think this proposal would do that along with our existing resources.
And I guess I'll add that the feedback I've gotten from from those installers in Houston County who I've spoken with regarding the possibility of G Cube doing this work has been very positive, and that they're as a highly respected in the septic world, reputable firm.
So if they couldn't go, you would be able to go out on the spur of the moment in this case.
Yeah, in terms of the need for immediacy and things, it's usually not the design reviews, but it would be soil boring. So for instance, I was out late on Friday doing soil borings because of the forecast rain over the weekend to accommodate a design, because once the ground is saturated, it's not ideal for that type of work. The same thing would apply. What we wouldn't be saying we would never do this work in-house, both myself and when Amelia is finally certified. What we're saying is we don't have the capacity to do the entire program.
Okay.
How did they used to do it in the past?
Yeah, they only had 2 in there and they did it all.
There used to be 5 people in that office. Now there's 3.
Has there,
How did they do it in the past? Is the answer.
I just think we should I would like to table it for a week and see what we get for application. I know we're required to get an application or a search for that position and see what we get.
Commissioner,
In the meantime, we could actually do a competitive contract search on other possibilities.
Commissioners, this agreement that's before you is on an as-needed basis. This is not a guarantee of any particular number of hours. This does not preclude our search. This does not preclude as appropriate doing a competitive RFP process for bids as we go forward and find out what our search yields or doesn't yield. This is simply a temporary, as-needed measure allowing the office to move forward during the interim phases here. It doesn't tie us into any particular time frame or and doesn't guarantee any amount of workflow necessarily going to them, but just provides that resource.
I think we should go with a temporary fix for this problem until we go with an RFP or hire somebody. And this just holds us over until then.
So it's a 30-day notice situation, right, Tess?
It is a 30-day notice. That's pretty standard in what we put in. However, it is not, there's no guaranteed, if you look at this, it is as we refer them, basically.
Just if needed.
Yeah. So, I mean, they could give us 30 days notice saying, hey, we're not going to be available to you in the future if you should call on us. Or for their planning, we could say that, let them know the same thing. That is more of a contractual courtesy, if you
This
will.
covers us for now. We've got the application advertising going out for an employee. We have had conversation with Dave this morning as far as whether or not Soil and Water could take care of this, and we should investigate on that. But this just fills the stopgap for now, and we can terminate with a 30-day notice anytime and not do anything with them during that 30-day period, from that perspective.
Well, I
So
just
covers the base.
I just want to make it clear, I'm not against contracting. I mean, I was wanting to do that before we hired the employee that resigned. So I just want to see all options on the table as choices that we can choose from.
Yeah.
I just know that once we start working with G-Cube, that'll probably just become a permanent thing, is how it would probably see that happening.
We have to put out an RFP and other people can apply too.
Well, we're not doing an RFP for this right now, so.
Please keep in mind, this position is is a union position covered by AFSCME. And so with all respect to the labor considerations, this is our first and foremost obligation is to look to try to determine to do this through as a covered labor position right now. However, if there's situations where we can't cover things, we need to be able to contract just for those temporary services.
But we are advertising for the position.
Correct. Well, as of this morning, correct.
Well, we have not. This is a stopgap.
Right.
And we can switch to soil and water if we don't get anybody qualified that advertises in the first place or that applies in the first place. We can stick to G-Cube. We can go to soil and water. Depends on what happens with the advertising. But the
Correct.
G-Cube is an immediate assist as far as right now is concerned.
Yes.
And now is a busy time of the year.
Well, I will make a motion that we go with G-Cube on a temporary basis as needed.
There's a second to the motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
I'm going to have to say no only because I feel we need to explore all the avenues first, and we're actually jumping the gun here on because we got to see. I mean, we got an advertisement out for it, and to fill that position. What if we get it filled and I don't know? It's just I feel we're putting a cart in front of the horse. That's all.
But we can give them 30-day notice.
Yeah.
And we don't need to use them if we don't need them.
We're voting, we're not discussing.
District 3,
I vote yes because it is a stopgap and not permanent.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
No, I gotta no, because I think we're jumping the gun a little.
So Allison, how'd the vote turn? Tell me. 3-2?
Correct.
Motion carries 3-2.
Thank you, Commissioners.
The last item is the consideration of approving Resolution 21-22, the transfer of real property in Houston County in the city of Caledonia to the city of Caledonia.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, the purpose of today's request is to transfer the property located on 119 South Kingston Street in Caledonia via Board Resolution 21-22. Taxes and penalties, interest and fees are delinquent since 2016, and I've acquired a quitclaim deed from John H. Hauser and Mary Hauser for this property, which gives the ownership of the property to Houston County right now as we stand. The City of Caledonia proposed in a letter dated February 10th, 2021, indicating the city was interested in buying the property for $13,200 and using the property for an authorized public purpose, which at least in the near term will be a pocket park with a large 3D mural. The City Council approved the purchase in a 4-0 vote, and this also followed with a letter dated March 5th, 2021 from the City of Caledonia confirming the city's offer was contingent on the city recovering from the county their portion of delinquent taxes, fees, penalties owing on the property. The city's offer was also contingent on receiving a portion of the special assessments for removing the hazardous building formerly located on the property. The City of Caledonia realizes that all jurisdictions will be receiving their share of taxes, penalties, interest, and fees actually when settlement occurs in May or June. In summary, the sale of the property will result in a quitclaim deed from Houston County to the City of Caledonia. All taxes, penalties, interest, and fees will be dispersed as previously mentioned to all jurisdictions. State deed tax and a recording fee to the Houston County to file the quitclaim deed will be included in the fees as indicated in the summary of proceeds, which have been included in the packet. Actually revised as of this morning with a few changes. As assessments were added to this property in February of 21, As requested by the city, the county is required to collect the full amount of state deed tax for $43.56 when filing the quitclaim deed, transferring the property from Houston County to the city of Caledonia. The cost is based on the sale price of $13,200, and that is calculated at $3.30 per thousand. So due to this slight change, I did send a revised summary of proceeds to include the filing fees for the recording. The city has agreed in the letter dated March 5th to waive the remaining portion of the special assessments not repaid to the city from the sale proceeds, as the city will then be the fee title owner of the property. And that does pretty much include my request. Do you have any questions, commissioners?
You kept it pretty informed, Donna.
Okay, yeah, and Adam, I think, is on as well, so if he has anything to say, he's welcome to say something if he has something.
I don't have anything to say, Donna, other than just I appreciate all your help on this, both you and Polly. I know this was a challenging process, so thank you, and as well as to Sam Yawn as well.
Yep, and I did, Carol Lapham, Sam, and is very familiar with this, and we've kind of worked together on this project. So it's going to be nice to get it complete.
So is there a motion to approve the transfer?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer to the city of Caledonia.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
You got muted somehow.
Second for discussion.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Is this piece of property is not needed by the county for anything that we have in our future plans?
This property is located downtown, and there was a building on the property, and the city of Caledonia took care of removal of the property, and with that they ended up with like $33,000 worth of costs involved. And so right now this property is just sitting, it's pretty much just a dirt slab right now.
Very good, thank you.
It's only a 60 by 60.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
They're going to make a pocket park, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thought. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Adam, for everything you did.
Thank you to the board. We appreciate it.
So moving on, board updates from me. Just informational as it stands right now. One of the boilers has gone down over in the County Justice Center. So it's a duplicating system. If one goes down, the other one is there, but now we're running with one boiler. And from a health point of view, I think Tess is going to look into this, but I'm pretty sure we have to replace it in order to maintain the operational aspect of the Justice Center. And it's a $51,000 plus cost to replace it. And we don't know how long it takes to get it. She's going to check and see as far as, the stimulus money, if the new monies that are coming out, if there's some way around being able to use some of the stimulus money to pay for this. But it's not something that we can wait very long. So she's going to investigate that, but at our next meeting, we'll probably having to approve something like that for the Justice Center. The tax statements all went out. I'm assuming you got yours as far as that's concerned, and the announcements. When we talked in the finance meeting this morning, planning on putting some public service announcements in the paper, telling people when the meetings are, as far as to come in and talk about their valuations in this spring, so that trying to educate the public as far as that's concerned. And I assume we all got the email from Lucas with the request as far as the assessor's office.
Yep.
That's something that we can't take action on now, but food for thought for the next meeting. So we'll move on to the commissioners' reports and comments. Teresa.
Well, I had a personnel meeting, and I was I'm the alternate for the AMC state meeting, and I only went to the first half because our commander went for the rest of it. Anyway, April 14th is when the return to work is not a mandate, but a suggestion for emergency purposes ends. And most of the counties, because they're requiring their employees to return to work if possible, and we're talking that the board also needs to do the same. So on that note, I made a note to myself that we need to move forward on this ramp and the protective devices, so that possibly in May we can go back to work at the county also. Then they also brought out our district meetings will be in June. They're thinking of, there's 10 districts. They're thinking of having the districts, if they're willing, to do it in person, using masks, social distancing, etc. And then having an 11th meeting for all those people who do not want to attend in person to hear what went on between all the districts. Evidently, there's no voting that will go on in June, so it wouldn't be a problem as having to vote. It's more information, legislative information and stuff. So they're going to contact each district, or District 9, and see if we can have a place where we can meet in person in our district. And they'll let us know on that one. And those were my two main meetings last week.
Teresa, aren't those usually designated?
They are, but some places that were designated might not be big enough. So they're going to contact each district and see if it will work.
So where was District 9 designated to be this year?
I don't remember right now.
Oh, okay. Just curious.
Thank you, Teresa. Greg, what do you got?
Well, let's see. We had a department head meeting on Monday at 1:30. I took Teresa's spot.
Thank you.
Everything I think is going pretty good. Don't seem like we got too many hiccups or anything like that going on. So that went real good.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh, no problem. I guess the only other thing I would like to share is Fillmore County is thinking about building a jail. I think we should meet with them to see if we can work something out with them. Instead of them building a jail and having it sit empty like we are, it's not good. I don't know what your thoughts are, if we should meet with them and see what we can do, or just kind of a suggestion.
Oh, it wouldn't hurt to reach out to them. I know I've mentioned it to a couple of commissioners over there before, and that was in the early stages, but it sounds like they're moving along and they're having public meetings with districts, within the districts there. So I guess I don't know if one of us or Bob or being the chairman could reach out maybe to talk to someone, or one of us talk to them and just see how receptive they are. I don't know.
Well, it's something to look into, maybe. I don't know. Just kind of an idea.
I'll get a hold of the county board chairman.
Sounds good.
Fillmore.
I tend to agree that, with all the new jails going up around us, all of a sudden we're going to have all this new stuff and not being used. Hopefully not being used is when I look at the criminal or the court system. Hopefully not having to jail people is my hope.
We'll do that. Anything else, Greg?
Let's see. We had a finance meeting. Everything, well, you can talk about that, I guess. That was going good this morning for right now. It's pretty early. It's only 3 months. So I guess that'll be about all I got for now.
Eric?
Had a personnel committee meeting last week. I don't really have anything else to add at this time. So.
Oh, that's unusual.
I figured I better quit while I'm ahead, Teresa. So.
Good. What do you got, Dewey? You're on mute. Oh, there you go.
Here I am. I attended the Zoom meeting for the Twin City, Wisconsin train Amtrak deal, and it was informative, but it was mostly about what they are looking at. No ideas as to timeline or funding of that. And then I attended the training meeting here last week to try and get caught up to what I'm supposed to be doing and learning what's happening around the state. That was interesting, but I was at city council meeting last night and they're just pretty quiet there. But I think there's going to be a lot of things happening with the new pedestrian bridge going over Highway 6114. So, but that's about it from Northeast here.
So Dewey, is that bridge going across from 2nd Street? No, where exactly is that bridge going?
You familiar where the dry cleaner building was?
Yeah.
Weezer Law Firm. The parking lot behind it
Okay.
is where it's coming out. Be equivalent to South First, and then going across to be just south of where the road goes down to Chestnut, where the old Commodore and where the car wash is. So it's coming into that area there. They're staking it out now.
It's going to be a big bridge.
Oh yeah. The numbers they had last year was in the millions. I guess 1.2 or something like that. A lot of structure, and of course, beautify it. They added some stuff that came into play. The bus has, because of the ADA thing, they have to have a very, very long ramp to get it up over the highway and stuff. So it's a lot of switchback curlicue type of ramp just to get it up to grade for the west side of the road.
Boy.
It's an aggressive undertaking for the bikes and the hikes. For my report, I too attended that county training that Greg and Dewey were at. I guess I wasn't overly impressed with it from the perspective of I mean, they had a lot of commissioners and administrators that talked, but didn't really advise as much as I thought they would. When they broke us up into small groups, hell, they give you a question to answer or to talk about. We got into these small groups. There was 7 people in my group. The first 20 minutes, we learned about the 3 of them, who they were, what their family was, and whatnot. Didn't talk about the question at all. And then when we went to the second time we went to the group, then we learned about the other 4 people and never got around to the question that they asked. So from my perspective, it was not as good as I had hoped. I had a meeting with my opinion. I had a meeting with Hiawatha Valley, met with Eric, and went up to Winona and looked at some of their properties and reviewed their properties. I'm on the planning committee portion of it, which reviews construction and whatnot. So I had a meeting and looked at all their properties and whatnot. They got some really, really old buildings. Like one is a 165-year-old house that the house 8 people in it. I guess it's a place to live, but balls, it sure as heck isn't very. I mean, guys just getting out of jail, maybe it's okay, but the sparseness of the facility is not a whole lot better. But looked at that. Then we had the department head meeting, like Greg alluded to, and part of that in the conversation Andy talked about a lot of updates, the hack that took place and the things that are being done to protect us against hacks and then people getting into our system and what he's had to do for that. Some of the updating that's going to be necessary on equipment. And we're hoping that the stimulus money, some of that can be used to help buy some of this new equipment that we need as far as the IT department is concerned. And so that was a big thing. I told you already about the boilers and that type of thing. The east door is open now as far as going up the steps. They've opened up the east door since we don't have anybody watching the door on the west side. Opened up the east door as well and took care of that. And then as far as the finance committee, the Heartland Falk grant gets messed up a little bit because they're paying 100% for the installation of that culvert liner. So hopefully we can use some of the Heartland Falk grant monies for the other things that we talked about this morning. And they talked also about payroll programs and a possibility of having to change on that because one of our programs is going to not be served mid-year. We're going to start losing some of our servicing as far as that's concerned. I have a meeting set this afternoon with, I'm going to attend a meeting this afternoon, and it's with with Agadals and G Cubed and Aaron with regard to what could be done as far as, they want to build that house down by Sheldon and to alleviate the problem with the floodplain elevations and whatnot. So that meeting's this afternoon. I can report on that next week. And I did mention Lucas's request. So that's all I've got.
Brought up one thing when you mentioned East Door. I think Ryan might still be here. But anyway, what's the status as to the step work?
Tess, would you have anything on that? Are you talking about the east, the steps from the courthouse, Dewey?
Yes, on the old courthouse. We've talked about that some in the past, and I had a discussion with somebody about that, and you mentioned it. You reminded me.
Oh, thank you for asking, Commissioner. Brian and I are meeting tomorrow to talk about getting the plans together and getting an RFP planning done. So what it would require for a scope of work and to go out for the RFP.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tess, that boiler that went out
Yes, sir.
in the Justice Center, is the other boilers the same age or same?
Yeah, they're the same. They were both installed with the original facility. So the issue is they are a proprietary product that have that is no longer going to be serviceable. So we are hoping to put when we put the new boiler in, we're going to go with the same company. Otherwise, we have all the piping and everything else on top of it to change out. But we will save back our old boiler for parts for the other one, since we won't be able to get parts. So yeah, that's a real it's a very much a challenge. It would take 3 weeks probably just to get it here. They'd have to lift it up and bring it down through the roof. But it is any component of that goes out, the whole system goes, of the one that's left, the whole system goes down. So it really is a health and safety issue right now.
What caused the failure?
It is, well, the heat exchange failure is the failure on this one right now. The heat exchanger. What caused that failure? I don't know. What's caused the wear? What I understand, the cause for the what I call extraordinary wear, because it should last, in my opinion, longer than this 10-year mark. early on, for the first couple of years, I'm going to get trying to think of the right language here. Not rotation, but it would kick off and on. It was just the
Cycling?
pardon me? Pardon me?
Eric and I both said cycling system.
Yes, thank you. The cycling, it was cycling way too quickly. Thank you. I could not think of that word. So it was cycling too frequently and caused a lot of wear in the system. We ended up taking out about 2 years into it, taking out the control system and going with a Winona Controls panel that they put in. And so we've got that under control now. However, it really wore on our equipment. And so we aren't getting the life out of them that we otherwise would have. But we made a correction to that 2 years into it. And
2 years into the new boiler, you're saying, or what?
pardon me?
You're saying 2 years into the new boiler, you made that correction?
Yes.
Or 2 years ago?
No, 2 years into it.
Okay.
A couple of years into it, we were starting to have a lot of problems and a lot of, so we actually replaced, like I said, that control panel, and it's, the controls now are a lot better. We've backed off that, some of those cycle times and the way it would, that operation. I don't have the total technical background for that, but it there were all sorts of issues early on when that building first came online with a lot of our systems, including our HVAC, and we've made a lot of corrections along the way. Everything from velocity of the water flow, etc., that were causing issues. So this is something that we absolutely have to have. I think we talked with Winona Controls. Greg has really spent a lot of time on this. I met with Winona Controls saying, well, why, even trying to look to see, could we just patch it for the time being, what would it cost to do just the heat exchanger alone? And that's about 30 grand. Plus, and then there is, but there's the whole issue that there's no pipeline for parts for in the future. So we thought that the best case scenario here is to replace the unit, salvage what we can for ourselves for the other unit that we have, so we can keep that one going. But we do have to have redundancy in our system. And if any one component goes out in there, the whole system goes down. And in a 24/7 residential operation, that is not acceptable at any level.
So
We would
put in a whole different
do
boiler.
exchange, we'd be freezing our inmates out. They'd be very, very cold without having an active boiler. Pardon me, Commissioner?
If we wanted to replace everything and get rid of the old junk and get some new, what would that cost?
Well, a whole lot more than 51,000, and I don't know that it would be that what we're doing now would be junk, as because we'd have to do all re-plumbing, the whole. I
What if we
replaced
can't
all
get
the piping and everything.
What if
I'm
we
told
can't
a
get?
lot.
What if we don't get no parts? What if we can't get parts for these boilers? Then what do we do?
Well, we can get parts for the new one. That's why we are salvaging our old one, holding it, and so that we can extend the life of the second boiler that we have there. We can get parts for the new one. That won't be a problem, and the new one should be under warranty for quite a while too. Plus, we have better controls on them, so we should have more longevity out of it. It's a rather complex HVAC system over there, as you can well imagine.
That's not something we're going to take action on today.
I got one more thing I should talk about. I met yesterday, and this is for you, Teresa, for your information, with Brian in Brownsville out on County 3 on that situation there. So he's going to bring it up at our next land use committee meeting to talk about. But
Just that bad spot in the bottoms there?
it's a situation where someone's been moving a lot of dirt and got into the right of way, and there's a right of way vacating issue and this and that. So, and it's within the city of Brownsville, so they have the jurisdiction over it, and so.
You're talking about the thing right outside of Brownsville there?
On Highway 3, yep.
And by Cork Hollow Road.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that last fall.
So you'll be getting updated, Teresa, on that.
Sounds good.
City of Brownsville owns the land, huh?
No.
They have jurisdiction over zoning there.
Okay.
Mr. Kelch owns the land.
Well, somebody told me he took the land in on for doing some work for the city of Brownsville, and that's how he ended up with the land. I don't know much about it. That's just hearsay.
Well, that explains a few things.
It's hearsay.
Okay.
We have nothing else to add. Any other public comment from anybody? I know we still got 320-640-0146 listening in.
Yeah.
We don't have a meeting next week, Bob.
I'll just sit here by myself. It's okay.
Well,
Old habits are hard to break.
Next week's our week off.
You know.
I was looking at that because I saw on the one calendar I got, it said strategic planning, and I thought, well, but yeah, if Tuesday's off, that'll work.
Our fifth Tuesday, yeah.
So Dave, you got another public comment.
Yeah, and I'm going to apologize before I do this because I'm not real familiar how this comment period works, but I do have a question for public health, if that's all right.
John, I don't know if John's listening. He's still on. There he is. Okay.
Hey, John, I was just looking for your recommendation in the state and maybe even the CDC on how travel is going to be working here in the next month or whatever.
Travel, be more specific.
Flying, busing, railroad.
Oh, so you mean like traveling out of state, traveling to vacation,
Yes,
traveling
yes.
for conferences, that sort of thing?
Right, yep.
Okay. The guidance that we get changes frequently, so I think I'd feel most comfortable if I reached out to our staff and we got some up-to-date information, and then I could forward that on to you.
Wonderful. That'd be great.
So, do you have a trip that you're planning that's time sensitive, like in a day or two?
A week from tomorrow.
Okay. I'll get back to you well before then.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
You betcha.
Any other public comment, county business wise? That other number is gone, so. Otherwise, we entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Is this one that I can say all those in favor?
Yeah, yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Yeah, sure, you betcha.
Sure.